All right, guys, this is another episode of the Mortgage Pro Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Braun, and the Mortgage Pro Podcast is for mortgage professionals by mortgage professionals to make better mortgage professionals. And that's exactly what we do in this episode with Miss Rebecca Richardson. Rebecca is a top producing originator that has been in the business a long time. And in this episode, we talk about how she markets to her past clients, how she's crushing it on TikTok with over 140,000 followers. Just a lot of gems dropped in this episode. So I hope you guys enjoy. Like, comment, and subscribe. And yeah. All right, Miss Rebecca Richardson, how are you?
I'm good. It's good to see you.
Thank you for coming on. I want to first jump right into how'd you get started in the mortgage business? How long you've been in the mortgage business? Give us a little insight of your career so far. And
Sure.
Yeah.
So like most people who are in the mortgage business, they strategically plan to be a lender.
Mhm.
But like most people in the mortgage business, I kind of fell backwards into it. We had bought our first home right outside Fort Campbell, Kentucky. So Clarksville, Tennessee. And fresh out of college, last 2 years when I was at college or when I was at UNC, I had worked for a financial planner. So I kind of gotten bit by that bug of how interesting that you can make these little decisions that have these massive, like long-term impact. But Clarksville, Tennessee is a much different community than Chapel Hill. And the financial agency that I talked to were like, okay, that's cool. We want you to give us $10,000 and you can get started. And I told them, I said, I don't think you understand. I need to make money. I don't have money. So I just put myself through college. So I was like, I need something I can make money. So our realtor had come and checked on us to say, hey, how's the house? House was great. I need you to help me get a job. So he got me connected at a local mortgage broker there in town, showed up and said, here's my resume. Got on my best black suit and maybe I can be a processor or a receptionist or something, but our realtor sent me over here and the owner of the company said, you want a job that is not available and you don't know what you're doing. And I was like, pretty much, because I said, I don't know what's available, or I don't know what this processing thing is, but if you'll tell me what it is, I'll work hard and make you money. And so he's like, okay. And then he said, well, have you thought about being an originator? All right. Well, what is that? What do I do? How much can I make? And then he's like, hey kid, I got the great idea for you. Here's some rate sheets and business cards. So don't hurt yourself. And it's commission based. And that's really kind of how I got started, but I loved it because it was that problem solving. I always refer to it as like a Rubik's Cube, but it was that problem solving that I loved from working with a financial advisor, but on obviously a much faster turn time. Because a lot of times, obviously, as an advisor, you don't see the payoff for 15, 20 some odd years, really, for it to kind of reach this, kind of crescendo. And from the mortgage standpoint, it was great. Somebody came in with a problem. I could solve it for them, help them reach their dreams. In 30 days, they were in their house and we were off to the races. So it's a great combination of kind of the math and the analytical, and then the, just connecting with people and having the human factor as part of it.
And that shows through all of your social media marketing content you put out. I can tell that you're like me, a little bit of a nerd, but also like people. And like if that is the two things that you have, especially with especially if you have a love for marketing and building businesses on top of those two things, it's like a perfect combination for the mortgage industry. So that's funny. So you ask your realtor if they can help get you a job. Yeah. You try to get like a normal 9-to-5 job in the mortgage business, and you're just thrown into commission only origination.
Pretty much. They said, go talk to people. Like, I got my bright and shiny business cards and they're like, okay, now go to the real estate offices and talk to realtors. I'm like, what am I going to talk about? And they're like, loan types. Okay. I don't know what I'm supposed to tell them. And so it was very kind of DIY, I think that's probably where a lot of my grit was developed, because it was just like, good luck, kid. But I remember I had printed out blank loan applications for all loan types and started reading loan applications, and then actually had a processor who trained me from the standpoint of, right, here are the basics. This is what you need for a VA. This is what you need for FHA. I remember I turned in my first conventional loan, and obviously we still had, we weren't digital, but I had, physical files. And I remember turning in my first conventional loan to her, and it was so skinny. There just wasn't a lot in there. And I'm like, did I do everything right. And she, she's taking it and she's like, give it to me. Okay, go find somebody else now. But I think that really contributed to the way that I approach this business, which is beginning with the end in mind, right? So it's not, it's understanding what are some of those hiccups or hurdles that we can potentially face, and kind of reverse engineer how do we head those off at the beginning. Because again, it was really kind of that process or mindset of like, all right, find the problem and fix the problem.
Right.
And so if we can do that on the front end, then that's when you get to do some really, really cool stuff that a lot of people don't even know that they can do. And you don't run into a lot of the issues that we, hear about or come in, as kind of the second lender and rescue the deal for.
I always say a good originator solves problems that aren't even happening yet. And
Exactly.
It's cool that you had that mindset right from the beginning, because a lot of originators won't. It's just like, how do I go and get business? But let's speak to that actually, because I feel like there's somebody might be listening right now who just got their shiny business cards and they're thrown into this 100% commission. Maybe they got a side job, maybe they don't, but they need to make money.
Right.
They need to make money. They need to go originate loans. I still feel like the industry still is kind of like, all right, you got your license, good luck. And
pretty much, yeah.
Even with a good training program or, new LO launch that, if you come in, if you're lucky enough to come in contact with a team that offers some sort of like startup program, even with those tools, it's still, eat what you kill business, for lack of a better way of putting it. So
I mean, but that's true. Yeah.
Speak to the originator that literally just got their license and is like, I need to go get loans. Like, how did you do that in the beginning?
A lot of trial and error, right? I mean, I know we've kind of talked about this, as people only see, it's got like that iceberg, kind of, you only see the tip of success, and you don't see, all the times trying to climb up and then falling back down and trying things. I think to summarize it, people talk about their unique value proposition. What's your UVP? What's your UVP? Don't overthink it. You have to figure out what problems can you solve that either save people money or make people money. So if you're talking about targeting realtors, saying I, return calls, I close on time, I am available on nights and weekends. Yeah, that's the job. Like, not to be harsh, but that's the job. And we know that people say that and don't do it, but it's kind of first date energy. Everybody's putting their best, foot forward. So how do you get to those concrete things? What can you do? Is that a specialty loan program? Is that send me any of your turn downs. I'm hungry. I'll hustle. I'll, work with it. I've got a great team with me, all of those kind of things. You have to figure out what you enjoy doing, what you can uniquely do. And then who that saves money for, or who that makes money for. So for the clients, how do I save you money? I save you money because you're not going to get under contract and the deal is going to blow up. And here's what we do differently on the front end. Like, don't use industry lingo, use very concrete terms that people understand. We are going to look at your file the same way that an underwriter is going to before you put money on the line. And then that way, there's nothing that is going to come up in the process that you or I can control that's going to kill this deal. That sounds a lot better than we've got low rates and we close quickly. Awesome. Right. That's what everybody wants. You have to speak to what people's fears are and where those problems are that they don't know how to solve.
That's awesome. And now, would you say most of your business right now comes from, where does it come from? Realtors, financial advisors? Is it all referral? Or are you consumer direct? Like,
it's about a third. This is where my nerd comes out very hardcore. Is one of my favorite December activities is to take all my data from the year, because I'm very fastidious about, tracking where people came from. So I can think the referral source and then do this little exercise in December. But I do that because it's very important for me to know database where people coming from. So it is about a third from social, third from previous clients, and then third from referral sources, whether that's, obviously heavily weighted towards realtors. I've got a really good core group of realtors, but then also because of the social, then realtors will find me and send me business. certainly within the industry, and then also financial advisors and divorce attorneys, because divorce is something that I know well. And so they know that they know
Personally,
when to
or
bring me in.
personally,
Hmm.
personally, you know divorce well.
Personally, yes. I always tell people when I'm talking to clients, I'm like, separation and divorce is something I specialize in. I've been there, done that, have the therapy bills and the attorney bills. But it's also something that I really enjoy from the mortgage standpoint, because again, there are kind of some little things that if we
Mhm.
get to them early enough, then it, has a much smoother result and has a much, smoother path to help get people what they want. And if those are overlooked, then it makes things messier than they already are, which most people are already emotionally tapped out and they don't want to deal with one more, com- uh, complication.
Right, right. So you get to step in a bad time in somebody's life and be the person that makes things happen. I can
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
that
I mean, you're
being
talking about somebody's home. Like I
right,
think that sometimes what loan officers forget is that they just look at it, even if it's just because they're a numbers nerd,
right.
but I think because we do this so often, we get into very much kind of that left brain, like logic, order,
Mhm.
numbers, all of that kind of stuff. And although we might really enjoy working for our clients, sometimes forget that for them, it's so personal. That's why I say it's not business, it's personal, because you are dealing with somebody's home and you're dealing with their money. And those are two very highly emotionally charged topics, really, for almost anybody. And remembering that goes a long way for the client's comfort and then their enjoyment of working with you.
Right. So this- I respect the third. That to me like shows that you're really, really good at what you do, because I'm gonna say if I had, I can pull up the numbers and I track this stuff too, but if I had to guess right this second, I would say 80% of my business comes from referral partners and maybe 20% comes from um past clients. I
Mhm,
don't really do any consumer facing content.
mhm,
So I
mhm.
don't have that third bucket. Speak to, I think past clients are one of the most overlooked referral sources.
For sure. For
And,
sure.
and I think, and I think a lot of especially the people listening to this, a lot of us are good at our job. If you're taking out the time to listen to a mortgage podcast or,
You're eating
trying to
up with
work on
it.
your, yeah, trying to work on your craft, I would hope you're a good loan officer as well. So it should be a given that you're getting referrals from your past clients. But I think if you don't have a strategy, that bucket of business can lack. So speak
Right.
to how you get, and then we'll touch on the social media stuff because I do
Yeah.
want to touch on
Yeah.
that as well. But touch on like how are you maybe marketing to your past clients? How are you asking for referrals? Is there some sort of system behind marketing to those people?
Yeah. Um, I would say, just to, for full transparency and to normalize things, I'm sure that there's a lot more that I could be doing. So that's a challenge for myself and other loan officers, right? But what I feel like the highest ROI is, one, setting that expectation throughout the process, as far as right from the beginning. Who can I thank for referring you? Oh, that's fantastic. They cared enough to make sure that you were in good hands. Kind of setting that groundwork. At the end, when I'm going over the closing disclosure, then that's when I go ahead and ask for reviews, and just use that as an opportunity, because they're normally saying, "Hey, this is so great. Really appreciate this. Like, this was much easier than we expected," or, whatever their concern was, they get that confirmation of the trust that they placed in me at the front end. And then that's when I use that for, to ask for Google referral or a Google review. And again, it's kind of setting that mindset, right? But I think the thing from loan officers is we have to be honest of where our role is in their life, right? So it's very intense. We're in the process, or the pre-approval, and then get it under contract and then to close. And then they probably don't think about us a whole lot again, right? Because it's not like we're reaching out quarterly to go over
Right.
financial statements or stuff like that. So you don't want it to be overkill. But I do think that the services that provide updates on home values help a ton, because that's actual information that they care about. Yes, there might be some curiosity of what's going on in the market, from a rate perspective, or anything like that. But for the majority of what we talk about and what we can talk about, it's not timely once you purchase the home, unless rates drop. So a lot of times that's why I like, the services that do provide the market updates, and those kind of things. And then I also do stay in front of them just with some targeted, Facebook and Instagram ads, basically. So I can just a little bit of buying 2 seconds of their brain, of their brain
Right.
cells, to stay in front of them. So if the time comes up, then, they know that I'm still here.
So you're setting the precedent from the beginning.
Yep.
You're asking for the review at the time of like CTC or sending the CD or whenever
Yep.
they're like, I'm so happy of how this went. And then you're staying on top of them with one of the home valuation services, which there's a few of them. And then also you're doing some targeted ads. So that's actually one thing that I've wanted to do. That's one of those ideas in my notes that I haven't done, and it's been on there for years.
Yeah.
What's like the logistics look like on something like that? I always whenever I hear a new strategy, I actually like I get this weird feeling like I don't want to get distracted. That sounds like it's too much. Like I need to focus on what's in front of me. And a lot of the time, those are the ideas that are going to help you in your business and stay on your notes for 3 years. So that's one of those ideas is the targeted ads to my past clients. What is logistically and what does the work and what is the work behind it? Is it a monthly basis that you're re-updating, or is it
not even that sometimes? So once once you have your business manager set up for Facebook and Instagram, which a lot of times that's the biggest thing, because let's be honest, as nerdy and techie as we can be, going into a new system, setting it up, making, it's different lingo, whatever. Plenty of good tutorials out there to make it possible. You just have to push through and make it possible, and have the account and get it set up right. But once you do that, then it's pretty much as simple as keeping your client list updated. And I do that about every 2 months. I'll pull closed data and update the list that I have within Meta, because what it will do is whatever ads I have dedicated or whatever ads I have directed towards the client list. And it's literally as simple as first name, last name, email address, phone number, right? You give that to Facebook, and Facebook says, if they are on Meta, we'll find them and we'll send them our ad, which is a whole longer conversation about all those things. But as far as kind of the scariness of that, but what will happen then is any ad that I send out is only going to those people. And it's also getting placed in other places like, news articles online or something like that. So you look like you are a baller because you are everywhere, but it can cost less than $100 a month, to run 3 ads to however many clients you have. And so a lot of times I switch out the videos about, cadence is probably about 45 to 60 days. Just because I want to make sure that whatever I'm sharing is timely, right? So for past clients, it'd probably be something about, HELOCs, or what is equity? What do I do? What if I want to buy, but I don't want to sell? Just those kind of things that homeowners are wondering. And then also it's a great way to stay in front of, any new clients who are pre-approved, because we have such a longer sales cycle now. I mean, I'm closing somebody next week who I first talked to last year. And it wasn't really because they weren't ready. It was just that they couldn't make it work in the market until, finding the right house that was in good shape.
A client that just got an accepted offer, I sent her a needs list January. So that's 8 months. And then it's going to take another 2 months to close because New York is a little different with closing timelines. But that's a full year. So so you're also marketing to the people you pre-approved as well. You're also
right.
Wow, okay.
Right. Just because there's a time and a place for, personal updates. Hey, how are things going? Do you have any questions? Is there anything that you need? But also in the market that we're in, that can also be like, nope, didn't find anything again, so sometimes it's
discouraging.
Yes, it can be very discouraging if you're like, hey, do you have a deal for me? So, just to make sure that we're really understanding what their mindset is and how the market feels from their perspective, and being able to speak to that goes a long way.
Wow. And you get comments of like, I see you all over the place, and awesome. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I've had like some friends who are clients, and and they'll screenshot it and they're like, "You were the Washington Post?" I was like, I have that kind of ad budget. Like I'll tell them myself first. I was like, I'm not that much of a baller, but it does have an impression because you think about all the people that see it and don't ask. So it can be a really good ROI.
Well, you're making me feel guilty for not having this all set up and going right now. So
I'll show you anytime.
I just wrote it down. It's on the list among everything else. So on top
Listen,
of
you should
also
see my
calling back
list. I
your
had to like
friends.
revise my like to-do list and project list this past weekend. And I was like, okay, clean house. I got it all organized. I got it dialed in, but I get it. It's like, that's the problem of sometimes being a creative or a entrepreneur is you're like, oh, that sounds good too. So
I'm a big
it's just wrestling that down into some kind of order.
Yeah, I'm a big idea guy. Implementer. So I can come
I
up,
think that's
I
one of
can
my,
come
I
with
think
the
that's one of my like
ideas.
secret sauces. Like I am like a queen of implementation and
Yeah.
process. Because a lot of that comes out of surviving out of 2008, right?
Mm.
Had to be innovative, had to, hustle, be gritty, do whatever it took. And it was, for a long time, it was me. And then I had an assistant, now friend, come on board. But for the most part, it was like, okay, how can I maximize what I'm doing for the minimal cost? Because I don't know what the market's going to do.
Right.
And whenever there's anything like that, that it's, again, looks like I have an ad, in a national news service, that kind of catches my attention.
We went over 1/3 of your business, which is past clients, referrals, et cetera. Now let's shift to the other third of your business, which is referral partners, getting,
Mhm.
building strategic relationships, essentially. Give us your 2 cents on how you're going about building new relationships, as well as maybe staying on top of your existing relationships.
Mhm. So new relationships, I probably have a different view than I think a lot of loan officers do. I am not a more is better when it comes particularly to realtors, simply because mindset, I mean, kind of my dad early taught me early on. He was an attorney and was in partnership with somebody else. But part of the reason that he became an attorney is he wanted to be autonomous over his business. He never wanted to be kind of beholden to somebody else, and how their business was doing, would affect his income, his potential, his enjoyment, all that kind of stuff. And I think that kind of like started that like be the lone wolf, right? And it's not quite that, but I don't want to, it's not the best use of my efforts to try to be everything to everybody. So really, I feel like it's going back to some of that, have your core group of realtors that are truly treating it as a business and see you as a partner. Because one of my biggest complaints is working with realtors that treat me like I'm going to help when we really are in a partnership. I need you,
Right.
you need me, and together we're both going to serve this client well. It's not meant to be adversarial. It's not meant to be gotcha. Because frankly, then that's taking your eye off the ball. The ball is doing what the client needs and doing what the client wants. So from that standpoint, with the realtors that I have in my inner circle, it's a lot more of it's having genuine relationships, right? Like it's not like trying to do a quarterly gift or, call them every Monday to, call them into submission of working with me. One of the things that I am doing is I'm rebooting, we were talking about kind of like losing time for COVID, but rebooting some realtor profiles and neighborhood profiles that I had started before COVID hit. And so starting those back up because now they have some of the time, right? We don't have the insanity of 21 and 22, but just being able to find ways to enhance their business, support their business. So it reinforces that partnership.
What do you mean by rebooting realtor profiles?
So just from the standpoint of then going out and doing new videos with
Gotcha.
my realtor partners, talking about their favorite areas of town, their favorite neighborhoods, ask them about them, what got them in the business, some of their, craziest stories, best stories, what do they like, those kind of things. So it reinforces that concept of being a digital mirror. It's
Right.
that it's the next gen of farming. Mailers are great, but we can't ignore the digital aspect too with that same mindset, but just how do you do it so it fits within, digital, social algorithms and kind of, that always say that the different social platforms are kind of like different parties, right? So you want to make
Right.
sure that what you're doing sort of fits the vibe of whatever platform it's going to be on.
And, that's a perfect segue into social media, but I do want to touch on one thing that you just said. I think the quality over quantity approach is
Mhm.
something that I started to grasp maybe 2 years ago.
Mhm.
My whole business was built on have everybody know me. Like
Mhm.
that was what I really started on. That's why I produced the content that I do. That's why I started to, dive into social media the way I did. I just figured if everybody knows me, I'll get something. Right. So
Right.
that was kind of my marketing mindset. Now it's more of like, I don't want to work with everybody because not everybody's a good fit. And
Mhm.
I think as you build your career and you have a little bit more confidence and you have a little bit more, um, like you just know who
Yeah.
you are and what works for you.
Yeah.
You can start to take that approach of like, here are the realtors that I like to work with. And then
Right.
what's even cooler about having that mentality is you get to go deeper with those specific core group.
Right. Because then it's a real relationship.
Yes.
It's not that it's a business relationship. It's a real relationship with you actually care about them. They care about you. You've got that trust built up. And that's what I really like. And I think particularly that's coming to light again, kind of during kind of current market environment is because frankly, there are too many realtors and there are too many lenders.
Yep.
And
Yep.
it's hard to kind of place that bet and say, okay, for my business to be successful, I hope that yours is successful.
Right.
I would rather focus on people that I know that they value me, I value them, and let's grow together. Um, versus just kind of the spray and pray.
Yeah. And I think because of the market shift and because there's less transactions happening, naturally the everything to everyone approach is actually less productive because 80% of the realtor population isn't doing anything anymore
Correct.
because there's a cream rising to the top.
Yeah.
And you have to be partnered with the right realtors right now to even see anything.
Exactly.
I think it also comes down to skills, right? So, and I'm not saying don't go after new agents. I think some of my best relationships are working with people who like literally just got their license and now we're working together for 7 years, right? So,
Oh, for sure.
I'm not saying that. However, there is something to say about right now, if you don't have skills in this market, it's not, you're not going to be successful, right? You need
Right.
right now the people who are, let me rephrase that. Right now, the people who are successful, despite having less transactions happening, are the people with actual skills.
Mhm.
And that's a smaller population than realtors, right, as a whole.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. I mean, it's showing who, I mean, if I think if you compare this to sometimes some of the conversations that loan officers will say based off kind of their 2020 and 21 numbers, it's like, yeah, I hope that you blew it out of the water. Like that,
Right.
that was a capital infusion into the housing market that was a gift. And we will not see that again. And you should not measure yourself. Like, remember when you were a kid? Like, I don't know about you, I was a swimmer, but remember when you were a kid and like you could swim in the pool and then you could put on like the flippers, like the scuba
Mhm.
flippers
Right.
and thought you were like, I
A
don't know,
mermaid.
Aquaman, like you're like, man, I can fly, right? And it's like, again, somewhere else, like, can do butterfly. This is fantastic. That's what the market was like. But like you have to actually do the work. And sometimes it's painful. Sometimes it's hard. A lot of times it's hard, but that's what a true professional looks like versus just being able to have the external circumstances affect your business. You have to have the internal fortitude and drive to make those circumstances work.
And now let's segue into social media because I have your TikTok up right now. So a lot of you guys, if you don't know Rebecca, I mean, I was looking before. You have 150 Google 5-star Google reviews. I know maybe previous year's production. You're a killer, and that's why I want to give you the credit because you're humble and we haven't really talked about that. But I'm pulling up your TikTok right now, and you have almost 150,000 followers.
Mhm.
So speak to what TikTok has done for your business. If you want to throw out some metrics, you want to throw out some numbers, I just want to kind of have everybody understand the power of the platform, because when did you start doing TikTok?
I started fall of 2019. And the reason that I started is, so I'd started using video as a way to streamline sort of like milestone emails to clients, right? Because I'm big of setting expectations. I had a horrible first time home buying experience. So that's why I make sure that I've got a lot of good proactive communication, because I want people to feel educated and empowered when they're making these decisions and not just feel like they're kind of like tripping along to whatever somebody tells them they're supposed to do next. So I was using it for that. And I'd embed them in emails and whatever. And then I was playing a little bit around with putting stuff on Facebook and a little bit on Instagram, but it's really scary, I mean, because people on the internet are mean. Mortgages are boring, and you don't know. And a lot of people weren't doing it, but it's a good way, right? Again, it's kind of that one to many. How do I maximize the time that I'm spending for the maximum coverage and impact? But all my videos were all horizontal. So I'd seen Gary Vee had talked about that people should be on TikTok because it was a great app, and I'd heard that it was a great editing app. So I thought, perfect. What I can do is I can shoot some easy vertical videos, not having to mess with a whole lot of like editing, software and stuff like that. And that's why I started. So also wanted to know, because at the time, 2 of our kids were teenagers and they were talking about TikTok and they were doing the dances or having jokes. And like any good mother, after they were already there, I wanted to see what sandbox they were playing in and went on. But part of the magic, particularly of TikTok, as we already knew, because I mean, obviously you were doing video, I was doing video, but understanding the power of video is the brain registers it almost the same as being in person, right? Because you get to see their mannerisms, hear their tone, all those things, and just have a much bigger impact than a static picture or even the written word, voice memo, all those kind of things. And because at the time, TikTok was, really the only short form video only platform, you had to have the volume up because there weren't even captions unless people painstakingly typed out their captions, which we did. This whole progression of the app. But at first, people, if you wanted to see the video, you had to have the volume on. So instantly right there, it was a more focused connection, right? You were able to form those parasocial relationships easier. And because of that, that made people more likely to comment. So surprisingly enough, I get these comments on mortgage videos. Some of them were kind of the more sort of meme or, the lip dub, where you're telling a joke or, this still doing like the bubble pointing, videos, those kind of things. But people would ask questions, and it was great because it was great for 2 reasons. One is I was able to answer their question, right? So that was an instant connection to them. They're like, oh, here's this person that cared enough to answer my question. That's really cool. But I feel like I've gotten so much more than even I've given, simply because it is the best way that I have gotten feedback on. It's kind of like a sociological study, right? Like it's the best feedback that I can get on what people are actually concerned about, what they actually think, what they're mad about, what they're interested in, what goes over their heads. And I need to learn how to explain it differently, or frankly, what people don't care about at all. Even though I might not care about it, they're like, that's cool that you want to get that granular in the monthly mortgage insurance, but I just need an accepted contract,
Right.
And having that level of feedback at that scale has made me so much better, because it helps to really combat that, the curse of knowledge, right? We forget what we didn't know. And so sometimes we skip over those basics that we've got to go and start there. It's like having, your calculus professor that rushes ahead because it's second nature for them. And you're like, what? So that's where that was really helpful. And then the impact to my business, I mean, it's, I can quantify it, and then a lot of it's hard to qualify or hard to quantify, just kind of, like I said, how it's made me better. But I mean, it's, again, if it's a third of my business, and in, 2020, I closed 225, loans. So 225 households helped. That's a significant amount of business. And it's fantastic because it allows me to go ahead and set that framework. So somebody already knows, likes, and trusts me. And then also they know what I'm like. They know how I can help them. And one of the biggest compliments that I get when I'm talking to people, when they'll call and they'll set an appointment or whatever, and they're like, "You're just like you are in your videos." I'm like, "That's fantastic. I'm so glad," because like, this isn't a persona. This is just me. And I'm just
Right.
really passionate about what I do and the impact that it can have on people's lives.
That's awesome. I think I never heard anybody really explain it the way you just did, as far as the being able to get feedback from the public. Like, I know when a piece of content does well or poorly, there's a reason behind it. Sometimes
Mhm.
it's the hook and how the video is structured, but a lot of time it's the topic. So
Sure.
if I think social media allows you to figure out what topics are a hot button,
Yep.
not for us, but for the people watching.
Exactly. Yeah.
Especially TikTok, because TikTok is almost, completely cold audience, right? Or
Yeah.
it goes
Yeah.
out to a lot of the time, a completely cold
Yeah.
audience. Whereas Facebook and now Instagram has changed, but Instagram prior to its changes were just like your followers saw your videos. It's pretty much
Right.
it, unless you caught the explore page, which whatever. So you were only getting feedback from, and your videos and content were only getting seen by people that knew you. Where
Yeah. It turns
TikTok
into an
opened up
echo
this whole
chamber.
entire world. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So that's really cool. I never heard it explained quite like that.
Mhm.
And as far as strategy right now with, let's just keep it on TikTok. How often are you posting? How are you creating those videos?
Mhm.
Editing and post-production, how are you coming up with ideas? Give us a quick little rundown of like how you do it.
So I would say I always regard, or I regard TikTok as my testing lab. Like, I think a lot of people are like, oh, that's your main platform because that's where you have the most followers. And it is great to have that large of community. But because, like you said, I mean, it's such high volume of video. One, the reason I still, love to create on TikTok, kind of like how Threads is for Instagram, or Threads now with Instagram, is because there's such a high velocity of content going out.
Mhm.
And it doesn't have to all be so strategic. It gives you the opportunity and the freedom to just experiment,
Right.
right? Because so many times we have these ideas and then it's, I want to get it right. I don't want to get it wrong. I'm kind of putting myself out there. I don't want people to say something, and so it's like, I don't know. It needs to be perfect or it needs to be right.
Right.
And the bigger secret is to start, right? You have to be willing to be bad to get good. I have gone back and watched some of my previous videos. My business partner and I have shared some of our early videos with our team to be like, we sucked too. It's okay. Like, at this
Right.
point, I know I've created over 1,000 short form videos. So yeah, I would hope that at this point, I might be good enough. I have Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell, behind me. I'm probably approaching 10,000 hours. I don't know. My screen time report could probably rat me out. But from the strategy on TikTok, there are really two main videos that I put out there. So one, I do 12 produced videos a month, and that really is more for kind of my curated stuff like Instagram. It goes to LinkedIn, goes on YouTube. It's videos that I'll use for clients, referencing a point like FHA versus conventional or something like that. They're more polished. It's meant to be more evergreen, great hook, really tight copy, all that stuff.
Right.
TikTok. And so I do post those on TikTok. They don't typically do as well as on TikTok because, again, kind of coming back to what I was saying earlier, each social media platform, think about it like a different party. You're not changing who you are, but you do kind of bring a different aspect of yourself. And TikTok is meant to be, just kind of like you're hanging out with your friends, right?
Right.
So the casual stuff tends to do better, which is great because it rewards the DIY. So now what that's morphed into on TikTok is a lot of the stuff that I do there is going to be more current news, whether it's whatever the Fed has done or when we had our LLPA changes or just anything that basically affects mortgage and real estate that bubbles up enough that it's going to show on Yahoo Finance or CNN or Fox or something that's going to kind of reach the general public consciousness. That's what I talk about there because one, it's short-lived, right? Because it's news. And two, I just want to kind of gauge the interest of, hey, is this something that y'all want to know more about? So now on TikTok, it's been a very busy summer, so I feel like it's a that's a tough question, but on average, I'm posting anywhere from 3 to 5 times a week. When I was really building my account, but also is because the algorithm favored that, I'd post sometimes as many as 3 videos a day. So it's a lot higher volume, but again, we were bored in the house bored, so there wasn't much to go and do. So that's why there were a lot of TikToks, in that time. But from there, then I will, again, since that's kind of my testing lab, I'll see what topics, again, are still getting that interest. And that's either what then I will, repurpose for either for other videos, expand on it, or I'll repurpose it and post elsewhere, just because I've tested to see if it, even has any traction.
Right. I think one of the reasons why I didn't jump on TikTok is for the reason that you're explaining why it worked well for you, which is like, I didn't like the on the fly vibe of it. Right. I'm a person where like, I need to think about what I'm going to say. I need to, sit down. I need to get in like content producing mode.
Yeah.
Where TikTok, it's like, let's just make a TikTok.
Sure,
like,
shoot and go. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is like,
what am I wearing? What am I wearing? How's my hair look? All the stupid stuff that we tell ourselves. And I realize
it's also like know your brand, right? Like if I went and did videos and I did like the super moody and the dark and the like, hey, like the really like clickbaity hooks, people would be like, excuse me, what body snatcher is here?
Right.
So I think that makes sense. You just have to find a way to kind of, you don't have to do a completely different style. It's just more stretching. And it's, I think talking about like actors or whatever, kind of like a range of your skill set. Right.
Right.
But I think also TikTok's grown up a little bit, that the more produced stuff also does well, because people are like, oh, okay, here's an actual professional. Here's just some, dude sitting on a park bench sharing his free thoughts. And that has started to kind of separate like, okay, who are the actual, yes, creators, but who are the actual professionals in the space versus just people that can run their mouth in a very entertaining way.
Right. This is awesome. You're awesome. I think I personally got a lot out of it today. So I appreciate your time. And I know everybody else, like I've said almost every single episode so far. I think a lot of the listeners, or all the listeners, got a lot out of it as well. So I appreciate you. We appreciate you. And for everybody watching, where can everybody come, get connected with you and see your stuff?
Yep. I'm the mortgage mentor on all social platforms. There's a period between each word, so it's the.mortgage.mentor. But you can find me anywhere. DM me if you have questions. Always love connecting with other good loan officers. So like Eric said, if you're listening to this, then you care about your profession. Exactly. So you're one of us. And I think really what I'm seeing kind of going on in the market right now, I'm thrilled for opportunities like this, that we can all, grow our skill sets and things like that, because I want the good guys to win, right? The good guys and gals, but I want the good ones of us to win, and not just be the people who can beat you over the head with the most follow-up or stuff like that. The actual professionals that have a fiduciary duty to their clients and believe in that. And however we reach them through education or mentorship, I think that's a very noble cause, and I love being part of it.
One more question before you go. Mm-hmm. What do you love most about the mortgage business?
What do I love the most? I love the opportunity to help somebody get it right. Because like I said, our first buying experience, it wound up being a good financial decision, but it was scary. There were things we could have done differently. Felt like we just kind of got chewed up in the process. And then being a lender through 2008, seeing the impact of bad advice, bad decisions. I mean, these are people's homes. That's their financial future. And I very much believe in being a protector of that, holding that sacred. That's why we call our team the Lender Avengers, because we believe in, coming together and bringing our skill sets to protect and serve our community in that way. And I'm just grateful to be somebody that people trust to help them through that step, because I know that they're going to, get good advice and have a better experience than I did.
Well, everybody, Miss Rebecca Richardson, go check her out. I appreciate your time today, Rebecca.
My pleasure.